wasallam was on the water. So listen to this. The scholars mention that from the greatest, in some of the books of kaba'ir, some of the books of major sins, they mention contaminating a water supply. Think about Flint, Michigan, right? The hurma, the tahrim of actually contaminating a water supply, or withholding water from people. Think about Gaza, or confiscating water from a people that it belonged to and making their or harming, jeopardizing their water stream. And you think about what? Standing Rock. And you think about access, the pipeline that's being built there. A people that have this plantation, it's benefiting entire communities. It's their land, and then it's being jeopardized for corporate interest. And that's something that Muslims should actually be leading with, because the Prophet ﷺ emphasized the right to water. And the right to water is so severe, or it's such a stressed right in Islam, that when you read the books of tafsir, if you read the tafsir of إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتِ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, that zakah, the first means of spending zakah is upon the poor and the destitute, then the ulama will mention water, food, clothing, shelter. Right? So they'll always stress this idea of water. So much so that the scholars, derive from some of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you'll find them to say that if a person came to your house and they asked you for a glass of water, you can't deny them. Like if they came in and they asked for something else, you might be able to deny them. But it's considered haram, it would be considered forbidden to say no if they asked for water. Right? So the right to water is something that's stressed so much in our deen, and has such contemporary relevance, right? Imagine if Muslims were leading that call, of providing clean water to people. How many people around the world die because they don't have access to clean water? How many of those diseases are born out of that? When the Prophet ﷺ mentions that as this inalienable right, this first right, that everyone should have access to clean water, it makes you think about our current situation. Now, living in our times, or living in our space, you don't even think about that, right? Because access to clean water is a given. But subhanAllah, that's not the case in many places in the world, including Flint, Michigan, apparently, right? And what's being jeopardized now with the pipeline and Standing Rock. To go through a few other instances that the Messenger ﷺ mentions, he mentions a hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, قال, من حفر بئر ماء, whoever constructs a well of water, لم يشرب منه إنس ولا جن ولا طائرة ولا بعير, that no human being, no jinn, no bird, and no wild beast will drink from it, إلا أجره الله بها يوم القيامة, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a reward for that on the day of judgment. Then he said, وَمَنْ بَنَى لِلَّهِ مَسْجِدًا كَمِفْحَسِ قَطَعْتَ أَوْ أَصْغَرَ, and whoever builds for Allah a masjid, even if it's the size of a bird's nest or smaller, بَنَى اللَّهُ لَهُ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would build for him a home in paradise. And the scholars mention here that the Prophet ﷺ is mentioning the physical needs in one place, and he's mentioning the spiritual needs in the other. So providing for the physical needs of people is to construct a well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would even reward him for what? For a wild beast that would drink from it, or a bird that would drink from it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entered that woman, the zaniya, the adulteress, into Jannah for providing what to the dog? Water in a shoe. Right? That even the wild beast, if it drinks from that water, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would surely reward them for that on the day of judgment. وَمَنْ بَنَى لِلَّهِ مَسْجِدًا, and whoever builds for Allah a masjid as small as a bird's nest, or even smaller than that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build for him and place in paradise. And so that's the first hadith. Then you have the story of Bi'r Ruma.